Rangers Podcast. With Andrew Chelby. And Nick Zararis.
Rangers fans, welcome to the best Rangers podcast in town. I am Andrew Chelney alongside Nick Zararis, and we are Liberty Blue. We scream about the New York Rangers so that you can hear your voice. That's how deeply we care about you. We appreciate that you've joined us for the ride. This is episode 25, live on Twitch. Twitter, and YouTube as well. We'll put the full video up on our YouTube, Liberty Blue Podcast, and the audio version will be available as an audio podcast as well. Give the show that shiny and illustrious 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really means the world to us. It helps the show more than you think it does. At Liberty Blue Pod on Twitter and Instagram, I am at Chelney Andrew, CHELNEY Andrew, and that is Nick Zararis, Nick ZARARIS. Those are our personal Twitter handles to follow as well. Nick, the Rangers are blank.
Very bad. There's no excusing it. There's no explaining it. They are god-awful hockey team. Before we came on, I said I wanted ISO, a clear out. I'm taking this one-on-one. I've been thinking about what I wanted to say on the show tonight since Saturday night. The third goal. So Saturday, I was in the city. I was on a date with my girlfriend. We went out. We were at the Canuck, and we were looking at tickets every 20 minutes, half hour. Like, if it gets a little reasonable, maybe we'll go to the game tonight. If they went out and gave that performance in a game where the cheapest pair of tickets you could get was $160 to get in on the secondary market. $160 to lose by 3 goals to the worst team in the NHL. That is just objectively fucking hysterical. When you think about everything the Rangers have tried to pass themselves off as for the last 2 years, they had the end of the season go really bad in that 56-game season with David Quinn. They fired everybody. They said, we need credibility. So they went out and got Barclay Goodrow, Ryan Reeves, and Patrick Nemeth, 3 guys who had credibility from other places because this organization is incapable of developing its own credibility. No matter what, no matter how much they try to develop their own guys in-house, sans the 2 goalies who are generational, which Igor is and Henrik Lundqvist was, this organization cannot stay out of its own way when it comes to making the process work. We are at a point now where the first overall pick, the second overall pick, a 9th overall pick in consecutive drafts are all more or less afterthoughts in this organization's pecking order because the coach is trying to save his job. The GM is trying to save his job because they're all living in fear of the owner remembering the hockey team he owns exists and making an irrational decision. That is the reason we are at this point right now where Jimmy Vesey is playing first line right wing and where Barclay Goodrow is the immediate stopgap when there's a problem somewhere in the lineup. The coach doesn't care if Alexei Lafreniere, Capo Kakko, Vitaly Kravtsov reach their ceilings. He's just trying to be the coach for another game. So maybe that eventually he can worry about developing these guys. And this is where it all starts. It starts from the owner on down. During the summer, one of the scabs at Deadspin, and RIP OG Deadspin, which was a good publication at one point in time, a scab at the new Deadspin wrote the Rangers are going to learn all of the wrong lessons from their playoff run, and that person was entirely correct. Every single Ranger fan on social media shitted on that person for a solid 2-3 days about, well, you don't know what you're talking about. The kids are going to keep getting better. They're going to get opportunities now. Well, Alexei Lafreniere played 12 minutes on Saturday night. Where's his opportunity to make it? Because I don't know if you know this or not, but you don't win Stanley Cups because of guys you signed to PTOs. You win Stanley Cups because you drafted somebody 1st or 2nd overall, and they developed into somebody who was close to a point-per-game player and was an impactful player in the defensive end of the ice as well. The Rangers right now are a rudderless ship. And this brings me to the Trouba conversation, to the Gallant conversation. I was mortally embarrassed by what Trouba did on Saturday night. I know everybody who plays men's league hockey, who plays beer league hockey, who played hockey in high school was like, well, you didn't play. You play. It's not the same thing. Your experience playing hockey, not at a major junior level, not Division I college hockey, That's not comparable to the NHL. That's like saying because you drive to the gas station, you could be in Formula One. Yes, technically there are both cars involved in both of them, but these are not the same thing. Jacob Trouba has to do shit like that because he can't make a hockey play to help the team win. You know what would have helped the Rangers in that game? A good defensive play, a goal. Instead, he's got to do shit like that. And the fact that Athanasiou, who's basically, a depth guy, he's a 9th, 10th forward around at this point in his career, never really lived up to the potential we saw earlier in his career. The fact somebody of Athanasiou's character felt confident enough to say to the press on the record, well, that guy's a bozo. He gets paid $8 million a year and he has 0 goals. All he can do is hurt people because he can't actually play hockey. That goes to show you what other people around the league think about the Rangers and Jacob Trouba. That they went as far as they did last year on the back of their goalie and the power play. And what did they do? They named a bozo who took 3 penalties and lost them game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals by himself, the captain of the team, because the general manager wanted a tall American guy as the captain of the team. That goes to show you just how skewed and off the team's priorities are. It's about identity. It's about sending a message. It's not about winning hockey games. If it was about winning hockey games, they wouldn't have dressed Ryan Reeves last year and this year. They wouldn't be paying Barclay Goodrow $3.6 million for another 4 years. They wouldn't be paying Jacob Trouba $8 million, and they wouldn't have made him the captain. Right now, this team is rudderless. The coach is getting absolutely nothing from them, and I'm tired of listening to fucking Gallant. I'm beyond done listening to him spew bullshit. And today he sounded like Vigneault. At the end of Vigneault, he lost all grasp of reality, where AV would just go up there and say whatever. Like after the game on Saturday, for Gallant to say, I didn't think we played that bad. I thought we had good energy. They were lifeless in the first period of that game before they ended up losing by 3 goals to the worst team in the league. Today, Gallant said, well, we know what the public data says, but we have our own proprietary statistics that tell us we don't look as bad as the public does. That's exactly what Alain Vigneault said in January of 2017. I'm going to read the quote verbatim. We have one of the most sophisticated stats packages that's evolved through the years that gives us breakdowns of important things we believe in and prioritize. That was Alain Vigneault, December 20th of 2017. That is exactly what Gerard Gallant said this morning at morning skate before a game against a very bad Blues team. And the last thing before we actually open this up and start talking, now that it's reaching a crisis point, and we've been talking about this for 2 months now, there is no obvious solution here. There is no cap space to go out and add an impact player for at least another 2 or 3 months without trading out a Kakko, a Hedel, a Lafreniere, a Ryan Lindgren, somebody making real money. And that would only make the team worse because the team is already bad. You can't go taking away good players from that team. And some of this is just bad luck. There is no mistaking that. That is the way hockey works. Over the course of a long season, you're going to get bounces. You're not going to get bounces. Right now, they have got nothing but bad bounces. The coach has no solutions. The captain is throwing temper tantrums on the ice like a kid at Toys R Us who didn't get what he wanted. He's throwing things in the aisle. He's crying, talking to the media. He wouldn't have to do that if he could actually play hockey. But because the general manager wanted a tall American guy as the captain of the team, instead of somebody who might actually be able to help and lead by example, as opposed to performative actions that a child does when they don't get their way, that's why we are where we are right now. At this point, the way I knew shit was bad was when Larry was firing salvos across the bow. Because when the coach loses Larry, that's usually it. Larry was there till the end for David Quinn. He was there till the end for Vigneault. He's already saying, well, the coach has got nothing for this group. I think it's time. I mean, I tweeted it as a joke yesterday, and I was thinking about it, like, what's the most ridiculous course of action we could have here? I'm very much waiting for Drury to fire Gallant and be the coach and the GM at the same time till the end of the season, because there are no coaching candidates out there other than Barry Trotz, who I don't think would fix the problem, available right now. Claude Julien's too old. I have no interest in Mike Babcock, and everybody else who's good is already on a staff, and you're going to have to trade something to get somebody. There are no solutions unless one of the kids magically decides to go on a heater playing 12 minutes a night. There's nothing going on here. It's unrealistic to expect Igor to go back to being a 930 goalie and the power play to go back to being a 25% power play. Those are the only reasons they were good last year. They would have been a lottery team if they had league average goaltending last year. It's just there are so many clear-cut problems. and nobody wants to address the real problems because they're busy arguing if Trouba's hit is clean or not. It doesn't matter if it's clean or not. It's questionable. It's in a gray area. When you continuously throw hits like that, you don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore when you repeatedly put yourself in that situation. I'm tired of having to be Kevin Costner and JFK going frame by frame like this is the Zapruder film. I don't care if his elbow's tucked or not. The puck is gone. The only reason you throw that hit in that situation is to send a message, not to win the hockey game. At that point, that game is more or less over at 3-0 after Trouba already got in a fight. You're telling me he has to fight twice in a game to get the guys going? If the coach can't get them going after that, what are we doing here? I'm at this point, I've been yelling for 8 minutes. Andrew, relieve me so I can take a sip of water.
Yeah, the funniest thing about the Trouba thing is that he fought, when was it, Friday, knowing that he was really injured and he really shouldn't be doing this, didn't help himself by throwing punches. And then the very next night, because that accomplished absolutely nothing, said, hey, let me do this again. And so he did. And he fought more people twice. And the only thing that came out of it is the Rangers scored 1 goal. And then as soon as Jacob Trouba got out of the penalty box after, I think it was like 17 minutes or whatever it was in penalty time, he took a ridiculous penalty. And then that resulted in the 4th Chicago goal. So you can be happy that Jacob Trouba is out here showing energy and that he cares. And if you can't see me and you're listening to the audio, I'm doing massive air quotes right now because, like, the thing about Jacob Trouba, and we've been talking about this for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, is that this man is not very good at playing the game of hockey right now. So for him to be like, this is my way of providing the impact is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because you get paid $8 million to be a good defenseman. So you're not defending, because a couple of those goals last night was on not last night, I mean on Saturday, were on Jacob Trouba. Like that second goal where he could have blocked the shot, he could have deflected the pass, but instead he just stood directly in front of the shot, screened Yaro Halak, and the puck went in because Halak couldn't see where the puck was going. $8 million for what? For what? Like it is baffling that this man continues to play when he's injured. If he's that injured, then why is he fighting? There's 3 fights in 2 games that all accumulated to absolutely nothing. You have a gif about it now that Jacob Trouba's angry and throwing his helmet onto the boards. Okay, but that didn't do anything. Go out there and do something yourself about why your team is down multiple goals. You put yourself in the box for a whole period, and then once you got out of it, you go right back in. That's not what a captain does. That's not what an $8 million a year guy does. You're not a 4th line fighter. You're one of you're allegedly one of the top defensemen in the league. Do something about it. What is fighting? What is fighting and taking yourself off the ice going to do? Absolutely nothing. I don't like this is this is ridiculous that we have to be talking about this, because it's like Jacob, you get paid so much money to provide positive impact on the ice, and yet you do nothing but take penalties and fight people. You're like, we just traded Ryan Reeves. That's what he did. Like, why? Why?
The stat I told you about before we started recording is the one I think that's going to tell you all you need to know. Since that game, the first game against the Red Wings, the one that they lost by multiple goals, Trouba has been on the ice for 16 total goals, for and against. 12 of those are goals against. Jacob Trouba has a goals for percentage of over the last month of 25. When the Rangers are on the ice with Jacob Trouba playing defense, the other team is outscoring them 3-1. He is playing abysmally bad hockey. He is in the 3rd percentile of goals above replacement. Percentiles go from 0 to 100. 100th percentile defenseman right now is Miro Heiskanen. A third percentile defenseman right now is Jacob Trouba. This is simply ridiculous that the team it's gotten this bad. There is too much talent on this team to just keep trotting out the exact same lineup, and the only difference being we're changing who the 12th forward is and we're changing who the 6th defenseman is. And this is something I've seen a lot of people talking about on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok even. Gallant has his guys where no matter what they do, they're infallible. It's a varsity and a JV type system where Kreider and Zibanejad, no matter what they do, they're fine. Panarin and Trocheck, no matter what they do, they're fine. That third line, the kids, Hedel, Lafreniere, and Kakko, who have gone through a rut here, but I won't deny they have not been good either in the last month. The Rangers are never going to win a Stanley Cup if those guys do not reach their full potential. That's the problem here, and why I get so frustrated with some of the discussion we see here. Well, the coach is trying to dress the best lineup to win this game. Well, it's great he's trying to win this regular season game in December. That's not why they brought him here. If it was about trying to just win game to game, they would have kept David Quinn doing the same exact bullshit for another year of we'll take time, we'll figure it out. Well, you've had enough time now. Lafreniere is third season in the NHL. Kakko his fourth season in the NHL. K'Andre Miller his third season in the NHL. Vitaly Kravtsov got drafted 4 years ago, and he has less than 100 games played at this level. The team tried to have both. They wanted to contend and then said, okay, as soon as we can't afford to pay our older guys, these young guys, they got to be ready to go 15 minutes a night, no matter what. And Kakko and Lafreniere were fine in the top 6 that first month up until the first Detroit game. That line of Kakko, Zibanejad, and Kreider is still in the top 10 of expected goals of any lines in the league for what they did a month ago. That is how good that group was. The puck just wasn't going in the net. And instead, the coach panicked because he's trying to save his job. Still not doing anything to actually save his job other than going up to the podium and saying nonsense that people whose job is reporter are typing exactly what he says verbatim with no context, no historical context, like what happened this morning about Gallant immediately saying, well, the public data is different from our data. That is exactly what Alain Vigneault said 5 years ago, and somebody who knew their history would be able to put that proper context around that quote of saying, wow, the coach is spiraling. Things are not going well. He is lying to everybody's faces, or he's just being willfully ignorant. Which I don't know which one is worse.
What I want to know is what data backs up putting Sammy Blais on the second power play unit. But on top of
that's a great question.
On top of anything else, this man has 1 power play goal in his career and 0 goals as a member of the New York Rangers in nearly 40 games. 40 games, 0 goals. And your thought process is, okay, well, put him out there because why not? He's going to score eventually, right? Like, what data supports that idea, supports this theory that eventually you give Sammy Blais enough time on the second power play unit to do cardio that he's eventually going to score you a goal there? Like, where's that data? I want to know. Whomst gave him that data? Because it's like on top of every other problem that Gerard Gallant so far has tried to fix and has failed at it, this seems the most egregious just by virtue of how like obvious the solution is for this. There's no obvious solution for a lot of the problems the Rangers have right now, but this one seems completely over the top because this is silly. Why is Sammy Blais on the power play unit? He doesn't score goals. The point of the power play unit is to have 5 players that can score goals. Sammy Blais score goals. Why is he there? Like, of all the decisions, of all the problems, this one is not at the top of the list, but it is it just highlights the fundamental issues that this coaching staff has, where like things aren't working, but yet you do it anyway because you ran out of other ideas.
So one thing, and I've quoted this stat, and it's still true because Sammy Blais has yet to score an NHL goal as a Ranger. Frank Vetrano scored more goals as a Ranger from the deadline to the end of the playoffs than Sammy Blais has in his entire NHL career. That is a fact. Go count. And this guy is getting power play time over some of the other options they have. This guy is dressing for some reason. And it was funny. I went back and reread that Deadspin article today for the first time in a while. And the author called Sammy Blais a tall Canadian battering ram. And that's his most useful feature because he can actually play the puck with any discernible skill. And at this point, it feels kind of foretold. We know where this goes. We've seen the early season death spiral a lot in the NHL. The Canucks did it 2 years ago. The Flames did it 2 years ago. The Leafs did it 4 years ago. If Gallant makes it to Christmas, it's because they've rattled off a couple of wins here. But realistically, they got Colorado coming up. They got the Islanders coming up. They got the Devils coming up. They got the Bruins sometime this month. This is an absolutely brutal schedule for a team that has no confidence. And that's the thing. That is how you know this is on the coaching staff and the leaders of this team. There is more than enough talent on this team to be average at the NHL level. And the Rangers, they're about a little below average. I think they're like 19th overall in terms of standings points. But like I said before we started recording, the Rangers are closer to last place in the East, which is Columbus, than they are first place in the East, which is the Devils. The Blue Jackets have 17 standing points. The Rangers have 26. The Devils have 41. The Rangers are a lot closer to being the worst team in the East than the best. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, there's time. Yeah, there's plenty of time. But the coach has shown no willingness to change any of the things that aren't working. The lines are exactly the same. Maybe Johnny Brodzinski draws in. Great. He's going to play 12 minutes instead of Ryan Carpenter. That's not fixing the issue at hand here. The team can't score enough. The defense is inconsistent at best. And the goaltending is only good, not elite.
The argument there's a lot of time left. Okay. Yes. Sure. But if the Rangers can't beat Chicago in December, who are they beating? Who are they beating?
Chicago with the backup goalie.
They had a creative player in net for the third period, and the Rangers were still not interested in scoring on him. Like the if you can't beat the worst or at least one of the worst teams in the NHL in December in a time where you need the points now because you've given up points to Edmonton, you blew that game against the Senators in the final minute. Like you're giving out points like they're candy. This was a game that you absolutely needed to win, if only just to stir the ship right a little bit. Hey, like, we blew the Edmonton game, we blew the Ottawa game, but we can at least beat Chicago, and let's get the ball rolling for St. Louis, and we'll go from there. No, if they can't beat Chicago now, what is giving me and you and other Rangers fans confidence that they can beat anybody else? If they are showing up as lifeless and as uncaring as they did against Chicago at home when the ticket prices were really high, this is an original six matchup. Like this is I mean, I know Chicago is bad and all that, but like this was still, at least from a marketing standpoint, like a big matchup because you still have Patrick Kane, who's not going to be a Ranger. I don't know how many times I have to say it. Patrick Kane's not going to be a Ranger. He doesn't solve anything. But like if you can't beat one of the worst teams in the NHL with essentially an NHL creative player in net for the third period, and you don't really have any interest in shooting at him for that period of time, then what gives me confidence that you can beat anybody in the league? If you're out here disinterested in scoring goals against the worst teams in the league, where I mean, like that's your opportunity, kind of to stat pat. Like Zibanejad, in theory, should have had a 4-point night. Kreider should have had a 3-point night. Like these are the kind of games where like the defense is bad, the goalies are bad. Like these are the type of games where the elite players show up and stat pad. This is what these games should be about. If you are a good team that is capable of beating anybody in the NHL, when you are confident that's when Colorado comes to town and you can beat them, or when the Devils come to town and you can beat them, or any of these top teams, if you have in your mindset that we can beat those guys on any night, doesn't matter what it is, then to show up against Chicago and play like that, that I don't care how much time the Rangers have left. There's nothing about their game right now gives me any confidence that they can make up the lost time.
So one of my friends pointed this out on Twitter yesterday or Saturday. I forget when Fitz tweeted it, but he said, "Who on this team is playing better than they did last year?" I don't think you could say anybody's playing as well, better than they did last year. And then he went on to say, nobody is even playing as well as they did last year. Pretty much everybody across the board is playing worse. If you wanted to make an argument that Adam Fox is playing better than he did last year, I would hear that argument. You'd probably be going into the third decimal point into a lot of these stats to make that argument. But realistically, everybody has regressed statistically. The biggest one, and I think this is the most telltale one, I went and looked up the on-ice shooting percentage, which is just the shooting percentage when the player is on the ice. It's not just their shooting percentage. It's their shooting percentage with the other four players they're on the ice with averaged out just on the power play. And I think this is the most telling stat. Chris Kreider last year, 19.62% when Kreider was on the ice. 19.62% of the Rangers shots on the power play went in. That's not just his alone was like 40%. He had a crazy shooting percentage last year on the power play. This year, 13.24%. That 6% is about one power play goal a week. That doesn't sound like a lot, but with all of these overtime games, all of these one goal games, those goals would make a difference in some of these very close games. And I know a lot of people don't like reducing this to a simple, well, the statistical regression guys overachieved last year. Yeah, we said it all summer. You weren't going to be able to bank on 5 of your top 6 guys in the lineup having career years again. That's not the way sports work. You just can't expect career years from everybody multiple years in a row. And realistically now, are you rooting for the death spiral? Because the way you look at it, if you root for the death spiral now, they get Gallant out of here by Christmas. God knows who they bring in to coach the team. Because someone pointed this out to me when I suggested, well, maybe Drury would just make himself the coach and the GM. If Dolan is breathing down his neck, what's to stop him from trading both of the first round picks in next year's draft to get stopgaps to try and keep himself here for another year and fucking up the future for a core that's not very good? Like, as much talent as they have right now, the team is not playing well. And to fuck up the future for keeping your job right now, I think there's a real concern that if things go really bad here, they try and speed this up and force it. And then definitely this summer you lose Hedel, you probably lose Lindgren, and you're really scraping the barrel to fill out the bottom half of this lineup. And then you got guys, Panarin's another year older, Zibanejad's another year older, Kreider's another year older, Trouba's another year older, Gaudreau's another year older. Really quickly, you can see why a lot of people were, well, the Rangers didn't rebuild. They retooled. They got rid of old expensive guys. They brought in some new older expensive guys. And then as soon as they needed production from their young guys, they said sink or swim. And as soon as they sank, they plucked them down the lineup. PTO Jimmy Vesey first line. Really quickly, you can see the death spiral happening and why there's a collective sense of glee on the internet from people who dislike the Rangers.
I mean, what I have to say about that is this: like, okay, if you want to fire Gerard Gallant, if you're a Rangers fan or if you're Chris Drury or whoever, okay, so you fire Gerard Gallant. Is Barry Trotz the solution? Because
we talked about this last week,
right? No, like he is the best name that is currently out there, sure. But the thing about Barry Trotz is that he has a lot of the same ideals when building out the roster lineup that Gallant has, in that when he was coaching the Islanders, a lot of the time with Matt Barzal, he stapled guys like Leo Komarov next to him. This is essentially putting Barclay Goodrow next to Zibanejad and Panarin and saying, have fun, because that's what you're going to get. It is a lot of the same things that we dislike about Gallant's coaching style, Barry Trotz does similar things in that vein. So while the system might be different, and maybe that would be a wake up call, maybe all it takes is a coaching change and a different voice in the locker room, and the team finally decides, hey, we're kind of in the middle of a season here, we should start winning games. Maybe that's all it takes. And I don't know, because again, hockey is a weird, stupid, silly sport, and the weirdest, sometimes the smallest things can cause the biggest ripple effects. And all you need is for Barry Trotz to come in and say, "That guy stunk, didn't he? I'm the new guy now, and I'm much better than he was." And the Rangers win 15 of the next 17, and all of a sudden everything is fun and dandy. So I don't subscribe to the notion of rooting for the death spiral, because as fans, like, what we're doing the show for and what we're passionate about is for their success. Like, we want them to win games, and ultimately we want to see the New York Rangers win a Stanley Cup. So which course of action will get them the closest to their goal first? Is it maybe steering this season right by making X, Y, and Z changes, whatever they may be? We can fight and argue and discuss which of these choices can be made, whether it's changing the head coach, whether it's trading somebody and getting somebody else. Like, if you want to go a more drastic approach, if you want to go nuclear and trade half of your team to all of a sudden build a brand new team, then I guess like they can do that. I don't think that anybody in the NHL would ever do that, because it's the NHL and everybody's too scared to do anything. But like that, the option is on the table, I guess. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go about this. But the thing about rooting for losses is that you have to be very certain that the death spiral is the best way to go. And I don't know at this stage if that is the right case, considering like they're really bad and they're still above 500. Like, this team is brutal on the ice right now, and they're still knocking on the door of the playoffs. Like, they're still fighting for those spots and all these things. Like, for all of our complaints about this team and how they've played to this point and the coaching and all this, they're still right there. So it's not as if they're as bad as Chicago when everything is as bad as it could be and the wheels are falling off. They are right there despite being as currently bad as they are. So I hesitate to say they should keep losing so that this process can speed up, because despite all of it, they're still right there. I don't know if that's the right I don't know if that's the right mindset to have as a fan.
So that's one thing. Is I'm also removing myself a little bit from the situation of like, yeah, of course, I would rather that everything just correct itself and them figure it out. But I would like to see a Stanley Cup before I die. That is one of the goals in life. Unfortunately, I do not have direct input in trying to make that happen. So I talk into the void and hopes that enough people will listen that eventually someone intelligent could make what I am saying into some sense. And realistically, I I was having this discussion with one of my Islander fan friends about the way the Rangers constructed this roster. They were banking on two lines at 5-on-5 doing all of the scoring, the kids taking a step, the third line treading water, and the fourth line not being an abomination. They were banking on Fox to play 27 minutes a night with Lindgren next to him. They were banking on Trouba and Miller to continue. They were banking on Miller continuing to improve and dragging Trouba along as Trouba got worse as he got older. And the third pair just not be an abomination, and Halak to be at least as good as Georgiev was last year, if not a little bit better. And the roster construction hasn't worked. The way they designed this roster, it is not working. The goaltending is having a harder time. Yes, some of that is just, regression from a Hall of Fame type season to a good season. I mean, Igor's still 916, 915 on the year. And last year he was 935. So 913 is not bad. League average is 910. If you're over 910, that's workable. You can live with that. But realistically, the way they approach this, and we said this in July, the day they signed Vinny Trocheck, they are banking on the top line, the top two lines being the entirety of the offense. That's what's happened. They are getting nothing at 5-on-5, and the power play is 5% less good. They went from 25% of the time they scored to 20%. They don't score enough to win, and the defense is worse than last year. Really simple how we got here when you think about it from just a simple calculation standpoint. But there is no solution here unless Gallant is going to be willing to actually try changing up the lineup beyond moving one forward on each line around. It's deck chairs on the Titanic, which is why I used the Titanic sinking for the thumbnail.
I tweeted out on January 14th, 2021. This was almost 2 years ago at this point. I tweeted out at 9:20 p.m. This was during a game. Who's willing to start the conversation of Jacob Trouba not being a good defenseman since the Rangers traded for him and gave him that massive contract? And almost 2 years to the date, we are once again rehashing this argument, and it's really I think I follow this up with that being right is the sweetest nectar of the gods, because like we all saw it. I feel like a lot of people watch Jacob Trouba play hockey and they realize that this man isn't really worth $8 million by how he defends his zone. And defenders are like, okay, well, he's good sometimes and this and that, but like if your primary defense of a guy is that he's good sometimes, then that you might want to build a better defense for a guy like that. But it goes beyond Jacob Trouba. Like I understand the money. I would love to use that money elsewhere. I would be because he's just not performing up to that level, and because he makes that kind of money, the coaching staff is terrified to scratch him, and it's they won't move him because he has a no move clause. But even if they wanted to move him, who's going to take that contract? Okay, so you trade Jacob Trouba 50% retained for a sandwich? Like, I don't. Okay, so you get rid of Jacob Trouba, you trade away your captain. That creates a problem in the locker room because supposedly they wanted him to have the C, and now he's gone. Okay, you still have a lot of money tied up in Barclay Goodrow, and you gave a lot of money to Vincent Trocheck, who we had conversations about earlier in the week on social media as well, of like Vinny Trocheck right now, currently. Like the Rangers wanted an upgrade from Ryan Strome, but right now they have Ryan Strome without the chemistry with Panarin. That is essentially what Vinny Trocheck is currently. Now, I mean, that man has been hitting 8 posts a game for a whole week now. I mean, he's in terms of unlucky shooters, Vinny Trocheck is the poster boy of players that should have more goals than they currently have. I mean, he's gotten post after ridiculous save and another post and a shot that just nicked somebody and went wide. Like he's not lucky. And if a couple of those shots that went off the post or somebody else went into the net, this would be a different conversation about Vinny Trocheck. But right now, the whole roster has a lot of money tied up on it, and the solution in terms of roster construction, it is kind of nowhere to be found because they're almost at the top of the cap. You paid a lot of money to a lot of people who may or may not have deserved that kind of money. We talked about Barclay Goodrow multiple times. He has a lifetime contract because he was just physically part of a team that won a Stanley Cup. And like you overpay these guys and you're left with this situation where if things don't go exactly as you planned, if things don't go exactly the way you want it to be, you have no other plan B in place to fix the issues that are currently going on. You want a backup goaltender? You want one that's better than Halak? Where are you going to find it? What's your solution? You don't have one. Okay. What's your solution if Jacob Trouba is being overpriced and is bad at hockey? You don't have one because you gave him a no move clause and now you can't trade him. Okay, sure. You gave Barclay Goodrow all that kind of money and he's doing not a whole lot. What's your solution? You don't have one because you gave him a lifetime contract. Like all of these decisions that they've made up until this point, they have banked on all of them working out in that direct order and everything going just fine. But if things didn't go that well and they haven't gone that well, then they don't have, okay, well, if this doesn't work, we can do this. We can figure out a way to get out of the situation. The Rangers do not have that. They didn't have that when they gave out all these contracts, and they do not have one now. And that is one of the most infuriating things about this current regime. They have their plan A, and they have nothing else.
Oh, you can tell. I mean, the day they gave Gaudreau that contract that extension, because remember they traded for him, there were people already saying, "Well, we can get rid of him after 3 years." If you sign a contract for 6 years and know that by the third year it's going to be a bad contract, you probably shouldn't sign the contract. And it speaks to the front office trying to buy credibility as opposed to developing credibility, and that's something that we've seen the Rangers struggle with forever. They have had a decent turnout. I mean, if you go around the league and look at who on other rosters has come through the Rangers organization at points, there's a decent chunk of guys who have turned into really solid NHL players because they had the opportunity to leave, go somewhere else, and actually thrive. Of the guys they've drafted in house who didn't play college hockey, didn't play in a men's league in Europe, didn't play in the KHL, didn't play in an extended time in the AHL, the only one is Filipino. That is the only player on this roster that has not played either in another organization or significant developmental time in another league. That is not a good testament to your organization and what it values. And that speaks to what you were just talking about what you have money in. Where you allocate your money tells everybody what you prioritize. In giving Trouba, Gaudreau, Reeves, Nemeth, Trocheck, you value identity, toughness, being annoying to play against, rather than just being good and scoring goals. That's really all this conversation comes down to.
Also, by the way, if you score a lot of goals, you're annoying to play against. I don't know if people know that about sports, but if you have
losing sucks.
if
Try
you
doing that.
if you have a thing where you consistently score 4 to 5 goals a game, then it doesn't matter how hashtag annoying or how much hashtag grit your players have. They're annoying to play against. Why? Because it's really difficult to outscore a team that consistently can score from whenever, wherever, and however they want. Like, I don't care if Sammy Blais is out here doing hits sometimes. Man's got 0 goals, and he doesn't contribute to winning hockey games. It's just the same process of just like this. Sammy Blais is tough to play against. He's annoying to play against. Oh, really? Yeah, the 0 goals that he scored makes it really difficult to play against him, I'm sure.
So you know how we know this doesn't work? A day after Athanasiou got blown up, he made fun of the guy who hit him because he has no respect for him or the Rangers because they just beat the shit out of them on home ice. You know what that says to the rest of the league? That the Rangers are an unserious team. If you are getting blown out by the worst or second worst team in the entire league on home ice, you are not a serious team. When your captain is throwing temper tantrums and hits because he can't play hockey well enough to impact the game, that goes to show you are not actually that tough to play against. If you were, teams wouldn't, Athanasiou wouldn't have been talking shit the next day on the record if he actually felt the Rangers were difficult to play against. Like, it would have been one thing if they lost like 3-2, 4-3, they went to overtime and lost against the Blackhawks. Every single one of those guys looked like they would have rather been anywhere else on the planet Earth than playing hockey on Saturday night. All of these things combined, all of these different factors combined, the bad roster construction, the bad luck, the lack of leadership and coaching, all of this stuff together is why it feels like the sky is falling right now. And you know the sky is falling because they actually mentioned James Dolan's name talking about the Rangers and not the Knicks. When Elliot Friedman says James Dolan's name once every 4 years on 32 Thoughts, that's usually not a good sign because that means someone in James Dolan's day-to-day life said, "Hey, Jim, what's wrong with the Rangers?" And Dolan had to go and look up where they were in the standings. They saw, oh, they've lost a couple games in a row. Now James Dolan is monitoring the situation, which means he's going to watch the Rangers play hockey for the first time this year. That's not a good thing for all of us who care about the Rangers. When James Dolan gets involved, bad things happen, okay? Period. You do not want this owner being more hands-on with the hockey team.
The thing about the Trouba fighting and the helmet toss is I understand like Rangers Facebook enjoys it. The problem is that it's all very performative. Because if you are such a leader and you are one of the supposed best players on the team, then you have to do positive things on the ice that contribute to your team winning games. Now,
Yep.
fighting two people in the same game, followed by that hit on Athanasiou, whether or not you think it's clean, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
It's not the point.
It's not the point of the conversation. Like the whole argument is that this man, Jacob Trouba, is consistently contributing to the other team scoring goals. And he is frustrated at the fact that his team cannot put the goals back on the scoreboard. That's what it's coming down to. Of Jacob Trouba cannot on his own by himself score goals for the New York Rangers, cannot contribute positively to the Rangers ending the game with more goals than the other team. So what does he do to try to impact the game? He does it in other ways. He tries to fight people. He tries to throw his helmet. He does all these things. But again, it's so very performative. When you fight two guys in the same game when you're supposedly injured and you shouldn't be doing these things. You fight, you're screaming at the bench, you do all that, and then as soon as your penalties end, you go back out on the ice, and the first thing you do is take a ridiculous looking penalty, and the Chicago Blackhawks score on the ensuing power play. That is a fake leader. Because a real leader does positive things on the ice. When you have the kind of stature that Jacob Trouba has, you should have the kind of ability to go out and positively impact a score for your team in this hockey game. It doesn't have to be scoring a goal. It can be, okay, I'm locking this down. I'm locking in the defense tonight. Like the Chicago Blackhawks are getting nothing past me. They did 3 times in that game, but for Jacob Trouba to have all this bravado and be like, I'm the only one caring, that's a whole lot of bull, because you were on the ice for 3 goals against. You contributed to not a whole lot of anything on offense. You fought some people and you threw a helmet. Congrats, bro.
You forgot, Andrew. He shot a puck in the direction of Staten Island, which he loves to do.
Listen.
Not even God knows where it's going when Trouba winds up.
When he shoots, it's going anywhere. Everybody duck, because it's not hitting the net. Just hope it doesn't hit you, because it's definitely not hitting the goalie or anywhere near the net. Like we joked about Jack Johnson doing some of the Rangers when he was on the team for 6 minutes back in the ye old days, and Jacob Trouba does the same thing. Where like he will take a shot from anywhere, and it will miss by 15 feet. And then the very next play, he gets the puck again and does the same thing. Like, where are all the offensive tools that he had in Winnipeg? Where are they? Where are these assets that he had in Winnipeg that the Rangers traded for? Where are they? Because they right now do not exist when he is wearing the New York Rangers sweater. And all the jokes are about, the reverse retros are cursed and they can't score with them on. Go do the jerseys. I hate to break it to you. The Rangers are not winning games because they are bad. That's it.
Correct.
They're bad. They could not wear any jersey and be just as bad as they have been in the reverse retros. There's just not a good hockey team right now, and there's no real way out of this. There's no plan B for this team, and I love how our rundown today was we didn't have one, because like we literally did not have a rundown. This whole episode has just been us yelling about this team. I mean, we don't really look at the rundown anyway, but like, just we didn't even plan one, because we knew this whole episode was going to be us going back and forth and saying, see, and we've been talking about this for weeks and weeks and months now. How the Rangers, like, if this doesn't go right, they don't have any other backup plan. And guess what happened? They didn't go well for them, and they don't have a backup plan.
So, 2 things before we get out of here and go watch the Rangers unfortunately play hockey. 1, what point do you think they have to pull the plug? At what point do you think in a spiral they have to get rid of the coach? Because that's all the conversation is going to be until they either get rid of the coach or they right the ship.
It's not going to get easier for them, because right now they're going to play St. Louis. On Wednesday, they play Vegas. On Friday, they play Colorado. On Monday, they play New Jersey. Thursday, they play Toronto. Like, there's no real, like, where are they going to get these points from? Okay, I mean, I guess you can argue on the 17th and the 18th of December, they would play a back-to-back, or they go to Philly and they go to Chicago. I mean, like, these games, if you cannot beat the bad teams, where the Ottawa Senators came back in the final minute and stole a point. This was another win that the Rangers just coughed up, gave away, gift wrapped over to Ottawa. Chicago, terrible team. They just ran over this team the entire way. Where are you supposed to get these points back? So right now, it's interesting that the question was posed because there's no real answer to this either. It kind of just depends on how they play. If they play against St. Louis and this is like a 3-2, 4-3 game, and some like crazy bounce happens and it just goes into the net and they lose or whatever, that's one thing. But they played a really good game, then that's one thing. But if they look anywhere as bad as they did against Chicago, then I mean the change might come a lot sooner than people think it might, because if they've looked bad for weeks now. I get that they beat Ottawa once, or even that it should not have been as close as it was. Okay, you beat Ottawa once and then you get dumpstered by them the very next game that you play. It's the way that they have looked is worse than the results that they've gotten. A lot of the results have either been overtime losses or close games and this and that, but they have not looked good for weeks. And if this continues to go on, I kind of don't have the sense that Jimmy Dolan, a man who famously has a lot of patience, will have a lot of patience for this Rangers team.
Somewhere Charles Oakley just clutched his chest. All right, let's get out of here and go watch the miserable hockey team. Make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're on all the major streaming platforms for audio. We're live every single Monday, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. The show, full video, will be up on YouTube sometime tonight, maybe tomorrow morning, depending how fast my computer renders.
We don't even have 3 stars because they don't deserve the 3 stars. Like it's not that we forgot about that segment. Is that the Rangers simply do not have 3 stars to give out. You would ideally the 3 stars are like, hey, who are the 3 best Rangers? And sometimes we meme and pick other people, but this week's 3 stars would have just been sad. Okay, yeah. They beat Ottawa once, and then they got dumpstered. Like there's not a whole lot of hope right now that really there's nobody really on the team that deserves a star. I mean, okay, Adam Fox is still Adam Fox. Okay. But everybody, like, this team right now has stopped us from doing 3 stars this week because of how bad they have looked.
It's a protest. It's an act of protest. There's nobody who's deserving of acknowledgement on this team right now.
That's right.
Positive acknowledgement.
That's right.
If you're not already, make sure you're subscribed to the show on Twitter and Instagram, Liberty Blue Pod. Make sure you're following Andrew and I. I'm sure the tweets are going to be morose tonight, is the word I'll use to describe it. His Twitter handle is Chelney Andrew, CHELNEY. Mine is Nick Zararis, Nick ZARARIS. I need to find a new hobby. Hockey's so bad for me. We'll see you guys next week.
What is the famous tweet? You got to be a blanking idiot to be a sports fan. Like this is how I feel right now. It's like, dude, I have to sit here and watch this. People enjoy this. This is what we have to do. Seriously.
Thank God I didn't go to that game on Saturday. If I paid legal money for legal U.S. currency for that game, I would have gotten arrested.
Oh, boy. All right. See you later.